and welcome to another episode of Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we are back with another innovator interview. You know, solar installations are a powerful step toward reducing your carbon footprint, but it's also a big investment that many Americans are hard-pressed to make. Only about 6% of U.S. homes have installed solar, according to Pew Research. And the Department of Energy estimates that by switching homes from oil and gas-generated power to solar electric power could save the U.S. as much as $1.7 trillion by 2050. The question is, how do more of us get solar installed at an affordable price? Our guest, Dr. Joshua Pearce, has a DIY approach to solar that he recently described in an article on Earth911, DIY solar now to pocket profits from solar energy. Joshua is the Thompson Chair in Engineering Leadership and Innovation at the Ivey Business School and Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Western University in London, Ontario. He co-wrote To Catch the Sun with Lonnie Groffman, who is an internationally renowned solar hacker. The book is free, open access as an ebook, and it promises to help readers install solar and cut the cost by half, making it available for about $2 per watt or less. A printed edition of To Catch the Sun is available on Amazon and at local bookshops, and you can sign up to receive the free ebook at To Catch the Sun. That's all one word, tocatchthesun.com. Welcome to the show, Joshua. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you for having me, Mitch.
Well, hey, thank you first for sharing the article and writing the book. It's important that we start to solve this problem because after changing our dietary habits, our home heating and cooling is really the largest source of energy consumption that individuals contribute. Tell us how accelerating the transition from to solar, we're not leaving solar, can reduce our emissions and lower the cost of power.
Sure, absolutely. So solar photovoltaics are devices that convert sunlight directly into electricity. And when they do that and you use the electricity, you're offsetting where you'd normally get it from. And throughout most of the world, that still is a fairly large percentage coming from fossil fuels. So rather than burning fossil fuels and emitting carbon dioxide and a bunch of other pollutants into the atmosphere, instead you use solar. And solar is incredibly efficient today. In the US, most solar panels will pay for themselves in terms of the embodied energy and emissions in under a year. And even if you're in the cloudiest spot possible and you face your panels the exact wrong direction under a tree, it's still definitely under 5 years. And so these devices, every time you use one, you're offsetting pollution from conventional sources. And that pollution.
Another component of that 1.7 million is the health impact of those emissions. How does that? How much does changing to solar reduce emissions overall and lower the contribution to your neighbor's ill health?
You're absolutely right. I did a study a few years ago where I looked at if we just eliminated all coal plants and installed the solar capacity that we would need to produce the same amount of electricity, we would cut the premature death rate in the US by about 52,000 people per year. And I realized in COVID times, that doesn't sound like a lot of deaths anymore, but that's still 52,000 of Americans that are dying that don't need to because of air pollution just from coal plants and just from their air-related pollution.
Yeah, in a way, it's analogous to putting seatbelts in cars. Just people didn't need to die. We didn't realize we could change that, and we did. Now, how much does the average professionally installed solar system cost, and how fast is the cost of the technology itself falling?
Those are, so I can get the first one first. So the average cost for professionally installed solar is usually around $3 per watt. And so solar is sold on a per power basis. Now, how much it would cost for you at your home depends a lot on your home. So kind of a more modest home, maybe just a couple, might need 3 kilowatts. So it would be a $9,000 system. Okay. The average in Canada is about $22,500 for a 7.5 kilowatt system. And like the system that I used to write the book was on a 10 kilowatt system on my garage. But I have a large family and a hot tub and an electric vehicle. So we needed a little bit more. And so 10 kilowatts at $3 a watt is about $30,000.
Okay.
The price has been falling consistently until just recently, where it went up again. And so I think solar, the components that make up a solar system are having the same problems that everybody is having, from toilet paper to everything right now. is fluctuating in price in non-historically traditional ways.
Well, and so that let's hope that's an interim problem. But generally, the cost of generating a solar watt has been following, or even accelerating past Moore's law, which half the cost for twice the performance every 18 months is that rule. Now, that means that this technology, whether it's affordable today or in 2 or 5 years, is going to be available to everybody. So how easy is it to do a DIY solar project?
So it's actually remarkably easy, especially for small and modest systems. And I think one of the things that everybody listening should understand, if you live in North America right now, you almost certainly can make money having a professionally installed system put on your house. And so if you have access to the capital or you can get a loan, you should probably do it. We did a study several years ago just looking at Michigan, which is by far not the best location to put solar in the US. And every single residence in Michigan would make money or save money by putting in solar instead of buying it from the utility at the current rates. And when you do it DIY style, you cut the costs in at least half, because a large portion of the cost of a PV system is having people come and do the work. And that doesn't mean that you have to be like an engineer. In the book, we walk you through the steps to put together a system. And then if you're doing something like powering your entire house, you probably do not have the technical proficiency to connect to the grid. And so for the most challenging parts, that's when you bring the professionals back in. You bring in an electrician, do your final connection.
So practical question. This does involve a lot of lifting or physical work to get the panels into place. So should we be thinking that this is a project for younger people?
It depends on the system. So the book goes all the way down to systems that are a couple watts. And so let's say that you're starting off modestly, you just want to learn about the technology, doing something like putting a PV system together to power your cell phone or your computer is a fairly modest project. It can be done over the weekend. It's something that I think, you could have very young children that have no lifting capabilities whatsoever do. When you're talking about doing your own house, that for most DIYers, I would recommend thinking about a ground mounted system.
Okay.
Which is much more accessible, and you don't have to be a power lifter. If you feel comfortable going up on your roof, and I used to re-roof my grandparents' house. Like if you're comfortable doing that, then putting in a roof mounted system is not that big of a deal. But if you've never done roof work before, you probably want to think about having a professional do that as well.
Well, the other thing that you would generally rely on a professional to do is make a recommendation about what technology to buy. How does the book help assess the available options and make a choice?
So the book has a bunch of kind of like built-in little spreadsheets, and you can download the spreadsheets or just walk through the math with pen and paper. And none of the math is overly complicated, but it shows you how to get the capacity for each of the components, like how many modules you need if you need a battery system, and if you do, how big they have to be, the wiring that you need, the inverter. If you need it. And then once you know what you're looking for, then you can go online and shop for the best deal that you can get locally.
And I just have to ask, do you help people find deals, or is there a way to plug in to your site links to good deals on that stuff?
We don't specifically endorse anybody, but there are a couple tricks that you can use, particularly in the US, to get better deals. And so there's a couple firms that are selling refurbished modules. So this would be solar panels that were on a large solar farm, and it did its duty. They made money, and then they took the panels down for whatever reason. And so getting those panels where they're rated at their current efficiency, and we know that panels are going to lose maybe 0.2 to 0.5% per year. You can still run the numbers on them, and they're usually a very, very good deal. We've also used like companies like Sunelec in Florida that import like B-grade modules, so modules that might have a scuff mark on them. And if you don't care about that, you can get it for more or less than half off. And so, we've used those for testing all different kinds of systems.
So a refurbished system, a panel, would, even after 20 years of service, only be about 5% less efficient?
Yes, and depending on the module. So there are some very old ones that had poor encapsulation that you would have worse degradation than that. But your typical module is well above 80% of its birth efficiency. when it's done with it, when it's officially done with its warranty. And I think that's one of the things, when you're running the economics, all of us know that the panels last more than 20 years.
Sure.
But generally, we only do the economics out to 20 or 25 years.
So you just mentioned a warranty, and this is an issue with many technologies, that if I install or service it myself, the warranty is voided. Is that something that a DIY solar homeowner should be concerned about, or is there a way to manage around that?
Yeah, there's certainly a way to manage around it. So if you're doing a PV system for your house, in general, like the warranty will be on the specific components, like the inverter or the modules, and that as long as you didn't do anything insane, like followed standard procedures for mounting hardware and that kind of thing, the warranty should be just fine. In terms of honestly, the chance that your PV module goes down in 25 years is almost zero, which is why they're so comfortable.
Not a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, there's nothing happening there. Unless it gets hit by a falling tree or something, it'll be fine. But inverters, you do have to think about a little bit. So a standard inverter will last about half the lifetime of a system. And so that you're going to need to replace that, 15 years in or so.
Now, based on my reading, it seems like the time to call the electrician is when you want to connect that inverter and connect the house to the grid. Is there anything else that I should be thinking in terms of having a professional do to ensure that both the system's reliable and the warranty is intact?
So depending on where you are, so in the US, all the jurisdictions are different. So in some places, you can just do whatever you want. In some cases, you need to have someone come out and inspect your system before you're allowed to connect it to the grid. So this is even before you'd call the electrician. If you're doing a small system or a DC system or an off-the-grid system, in general, you can follow the rules in the book and you'll be just fine. And if you've never worked with electricity before, I strongly recommend that you start with something small so that you gain the understanding, where if you do shock yourself, it's not going to be deadly. It'll just be irritating. And then once you build up some confidence, then you can go to bigger systems. But in general, if you're building a house-size system more than a kilowatt and it's going to be grid connected, you have to have permission from the utility to do it. Mm-hmm. And almost certainly you should call a certified electrician. There might be a couple jurisdictions where you don't need to, but it's still a good idea. Have a professional do the final hookup.
And that final hookup is also the key to, if you are generating excess energy at home, selling it back to the grid. Is there anything that prevents a DIY solar installer from continuing to monetize that excess energy production?
There's nothing. The utilities generally treat a DIY solar the same way they would treat a professional one. So let's take the case of Michigan again. If you wanted to do it in Michigan, you need to fill out paperwork with your utility ahead of time and have permission to do it. And usually they want something like a line diagram so that their people understand what you're putting in. And once they've checked off on it, then you have a regional person come and make sure that everything is done correctly. And then the final connection occurs.
It's interesting. I've had several different solar installer companies out to look at my house. I live in Western Washington, where, like Michigan, it's not always the best for solar energy. And they've generally discouraged me from doing it. But what you're saying about the payback time being only 5 years in the worst case scenario is it flies in the face of that advice. Should I be demanding something from these folks, or why are they discouraging me?
So I should be careful. So the payback time I was talking about was the energy, the embodied energy, or the emissions payback time.
Okay.
The economic payback time is different than that, and actually shows you that our economics is a little bit messed up. But in general,
how are the economics a little messed up?
So the economic payback time and the energy payback time for an energy producing device should be nearly identical. And depending on where you live, those numbers change radically. And it could even change radically between you and your neighbor across the street if they're on a different utility service. And so it's very frustrating when that happens.
Ironically, that is the case at my house. When the power goes out at my house, the neighbors have power.
At least you can go over and get popcorn there. So when you're looking at the economics of it, what I recommend that everyone does is treat it as an investment. And so right now maybe you have investments on the stock market, or maybe you don't have the stock. Either maybe you're not in stock at all. Maybe you have bonds, or maybe you're just invested at the bank and you're getting some interest on your savings account. convert your payback time that you get from solar into a return on investment, and then compare that return on investment to what you're getting otherwise. And I know pretty much no matter where you are in North America, you will earn more putting in a solar system, even if it's professionally done, than what you're getting on your bank account, for example, and even like a CD now.
So do you have data about how that also impacts the value of the house when you're ready to sell it?
So there've been a couple studies on that. In general, they see it doesn't change it one direction or the other. My guesstimate, I know for a fact that as people become more educated about solar, that they're specifically looking for it. And they're looking for kind of solar ready houses. And if you live in California and you're buying a new house, you don't have a choice. Like, they all have to be done that way. And so I suspect that, if you had two houses on the same street, identical houses, one has solar, one doesn't, the one with solar definitely has higher value, because you know that your electrical costs are at least shaved down, if not completely eliminated, for the next 20, 25 years. And so I know that my students, like when they move into our area and they're looking to buy a house, are looking for a house that they can put solar on if it doesn't have it already. Or
it's a benefit.
Yeah, it's a clear win. It's a clear economic benefit.
So if one of the other issues may be that I'm in an apartment, or I am in a home like mine that is blocked by a number of trees on the south side, tall trees. Are there DIY approaches to doing community solar projects where, for instance, neighbors get together and share the install cost and the power generated from it?
Yes, so that's very dependent on where you are and what the laws are. And it also depends on the type of community solar. So if you're doing a community solar system like in an open field that's all going back to the grid, that has to be allowed by your state. If you are working, I don't know, let's say with a local business that needs a lot of power and can eat all the power, you could do a community solar project with that business and sign a power purchasing agreement. And that would be a very safe way to protect everyone. The business would get lower cost green electricity, and all the investors would get a known return. I mean, as long as the business stayed in business, you're in really good shape. But those rules they're totally different everywhere that you live. And for example, in Ontario, we're allowed to have third-party ownership for solar, so it's no big deal. But that's not true in all the different states, and it very much depends on the grid that you're connecting to.
Also interesting as a potential investment opportunity to electrify your local region too. So that's fascinating. I'm going to need to look more into that. How did you and Lonnie Grafman get hooked up and start thinking about writing this book?
Oh, so we've been colleagues and friends a very long time. So it actually goes all the way back to when the founders of Wikipedia sent around a call for people that were interested in creating like a sustainable Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. And you had to agree to work on it a certain amount of time. And I saw that call and I thought it was brilliant. And so I signed up, and so did Lonnie and a bunch of other people. But there was a fight that started between the Wikimedia Foundation and the ownership of the site. Yeah. And what ended up it ended up kind of falling to the wayside. But Appropedia, which is what Lonnie founded, just did it. Like they didn't, mm-hmm. They just kept going. And so it became the largest wiki for kind of sustainable ideas in the world. And I started using it for all of my research. And so we got to know each other and worked on a bunch of different projects over the years. But then he started this book series To Catch the, and he did Rainwater, the first one, and it was a huge success. And, I've been publishing technical books for a little while and becoming more and more frustrated with not being able to give away. I develop open source technologies to benefit people. It's really frustrating to not be able to hand people the book that tells them how to do that. And so for this one, Lonnie had worked out a deal with Humboldt State University Press, where we would retain the rights to the digital version. And so everyone can get this book for free. And that, I can't tell you how happy that makes me, because then it's not like I'm trying to sell a book. I'm trying to provide ideas that I think will truly benefit people.
Now, if they want to support you, though, they can. And
yes, that's totally fine
edition as well.
And all the proceeds for that are going to the Appropedia Foundation, which is a nonprofit that supports Appropedia, and will continue to make sure that everything is updated and to the best possible quality that we can do.
Well, and so To Catch the Sun is available on Amazon, some local bookshops, and to catchthesun.com is the place to read the book for free and download and get on your newsletter as well, as I recall. Joshua, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us about DIY solar today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really, really great.
We've been talking to Joshua Pearce, who is the co-author of To Catch the Sun, which you can find at tocatchthesun.com. It's a free ebook. You can download it there and get started on your DIY solar project. You can also, if you'd like, order the book on Amazon or at local bookshops, and that will support the continued work that Joshua and his team are doing. This is Earth911, Sustainability in Your Ear. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. But in the meantime, folks, take a few minutes and share this idea with your friends who are thinking about solar, because this is a solution that is increasingly accessible to all of us. It may take a little extra work to do the DIY project, but if you can get a $2 or per watt or less solar installation, you're doing pretty well for both you financially and the planet. We're going to be back soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. We'll be back soon.